there's one thing I've learned in my business career, it's that I don't have all the answers. Look, I'm an ambitious guy, and I like to make progress fast. The secret to achieving success fast is to harness the brain power of other people in the community. That's what the Land.MBA Smart Bar is all about. As veteran investor Jesse Marchand said, the Smart Bar gave me the motivation and knowledge I needed to push through the tough times and accelerate my path to success. Seven-figure investor Mitch Milam likes to say, there's one meeting each week that I never miss. It's the Land.MBA Smart Bar. It's like happy hour with my land investing buddies. I always learn something. So if you want to network with like-minded people, make new friends, learn heaps, get questions answered, answer questions for others, learn new strategy, get accountability, and overall, get inspired while having a great time, check out the Land.MBA Smart Bar. For a short time, podcast listeners can get 20% off the annual plan, which comes to an insane $86 per month. Compare this to other programs which charge $250 a month or more. This is hands down the best deal you're going to find and the best way to invest in your success. So don't wait. Please go to land.mba/mastermind. That's land.mba/mastermind and use promo code podcast22 to join today. Hello, all you gorgeous entrepreneurial land investors. This is Howard Zonder with my partner, the amazing David Van Steenkist. How you doing today, sir?
Good. How are you?
I am absolutely terrific. Looking forward to heading down to Tennessee tomorrow. Going to be checking out some land and doing my thing.
Nice.
Life is good. Life is good.
Yeah, but aren't you coordinating that with another special event?
I might be. I'm actually going to be donning a tuxedo on Friday night and doing a military dinner. It's going to be fun. It's one of those things where it's a tradition that passes down from the British Royal Navy, where you basically start at the bar and then you have like a 4 or 5 course meal. Every course comes with its own wine. Dessert comes with port wine, and they basically just ply you with so much liquor until you don't really know what you're doing. But there are all these rules, and if you break any of the rules, you're going to get in trouble. And then so people try to like get each other in trouble on the rules, and then you have to pay fines, and you're going to end up paying fines because everybody's so drunk. That's pretty much how it works.
That fine's probably you're doing a shot.
No, it's usually monetary, actually.
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
No, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I'm going to see a bunch of all of my old buddies from college, so it'll be good.
Bunch of drunk jarheads, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. I got my haircut this morning. I'm like, how short should I make it? You know, I could go all the way, but no, well, I'm a few decades away from that right now. I think I'm going to.
What Dave do? You know,
I could do that, but I don't think I could pull it off quite the way you do.
I think you could pull off the chrome dome.
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to use my head wax so it doesn't blind everybody.
Well,
obviously you don't do that, so.
That's right. That's powder.
Yeah.
Powder on the bald head. All right.
So,
what are we talking about today, brother?
Yeah, let's talk about leverage. Let's talk about how we leverage and create leverage to be able to accomplish more. And you know, in this business, we talk a lot about VAs, and the reason is because they're so instrumental in helping us create leverage. This could start with leverage on our time because they do things we don't want to do, but it could also be that over time we've learned that they have the ability to do some things better than we can do them. And when that happens, then we create all kinds of leverage. So VA, whether you have VAs or employees, what we're going to talk about, I think, is equally relevant. But it's not always all rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes we have challenges, especially when we're working with people from different cultures on different sides of the world. And what sometimes that translates into is people saying, oh, I'll do this or I'll do that, and then they don't deliver. And then it gets very frustrating, especially if that happens earlier in a relationship, before the relationship is really solidified. That can really become challenging. And so what I've found sometimes with myself, but also in talking to a lot of other land investors, is that there's this urge at that moment to say, yeah, this VA is not working out, so we're gonna fire this person. We're gonna get somebody else. And I think that's just kind of a quick natural impulse, but I think that's also a very cultural impulse from an American perspective. We want what we want. We didn't get it. Boom! I'm going to go find someone that can do what I want to do. And we end up going through this merry-go-round because we're not getting what we want, and we blame the other side. But honestly, I think in a lot of those cases, the problem is not the VA. The problem is actually us and our ability or our techniques in managing VAs, or in, like I said, it could be employees as well. In reality, I think there are a few leadership tips that could really take what could be a challenging situation and turn it into an even more awesome and productive relationship. So how do you take that, a situation where you've got somebody, they've got some skills, but maybe they're not doing quite what you need them to do, and turn that situation into, instead of be a problem, but have it be a awesome, productive relationship?
Yeah, super great point. And I know this is, we hear about this all the time with land investors in the real estate industry, anybody who uses VAs, and especially if they're new, and particularly not just new to this business, but you might have people who are doing it as a side hustle and are individual contributors in their own job. So they've not had the experience of managing people, and so it's very, very important to realize this is a person that we're managing. They have feelings, ambitions, family, they go through struggles and sicknesses and high times and low times, just like we do. And so I think it's really important to take a step back, point three fingers at ourselves first, and take an objective look and say, all right, how am I giving instructions? How am I following through to make sure that this person has the support that they need? And in particular, when we're talking about Filipinos as a cultural thing, they have a very, what would you call it? They're fairly soft-spoken and not necessarily volunteering to speak up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think there's, and I don't want to stereotype, but across much of Asian culture, they come from coming from China, kind of a Confucian hierarchical kind of society. And so they hold the boss or the owner, whoever they work for, in high esteem. They treat that person with great respect, and they want to. I think there's a deep-seated desire to want to do a good job. But if there's something they don't know how to do, they're not always forthcoming about that, because they don't want to necessarily show weakness, because they don't want their boss to feel that they can't do what they have to do, or that they can't live up to the expectation. So the other thing I find about Filipino culture is just some of the nicest people I've ever met in my entire life.
Yeah.
And in so doing, they want to please, but they also don't want to be, like I said, be forthcoming if they don't know how to do something.
Yeah. It's whenever you have any type of employees, and learning how to manage people, there's different nuance that we have to take into account. Sometimes it's cultural, and certainly if we're dealing with people in the Philippines, we have to understand that culture a little bit.
And it's across all cultures. I mean, I've in the past have worked with the Japanese. The Japanese have one word for yes, which is yes, and they have another word for no, which is yes. It's kind of confusing, but that's the way their culture is, and then they're not the only ones as well too.
Yeah.
And working with Indians is a little different as well, but and from their perspective, we're different. So I think there's it takes some time and experience to understand those cultural differences and figure out how to work together in a way that accomplishes everybody's the tasks and satisfies everybody's needs.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to throw out a quick tip that was something that I learned a few years ago that made a huge difference in managing VAs and anyone, because I actually used this in my W-2 job at one time as well, because this was at a time when I was still doing the land business part-time. And then I know you've got a little bit of a story you'd like to talk about. So a tip that I got from a white paper I read about managing VAs was, when you give a VA an instruction, particularly if it's a new project, a new task, not something they've already, done for you repetitively, always ask them to reply after they've had a chance to read the instructions and or watch the video you made, whatever instructions you created. Ask them to reply in their own words with their understanding of the assignment. And this is a great way to catch miscommunications or mistakes before they start the job. Because even if they come back and they deliver it 10% off, well, if you caught it on the front end like that, caught that 10% misunderstanding, it's a lot less stress and just helps everything to go much smoother. And especially if it's a 50% misunderstanding.
Yeah, and that's a great point. It's especially true when you're working with people from overseas. I mean, one of the reasons we love working with Filipinos is because they're so great with English. I mean, their English is practically American, but it's not perfectly American. And so there's still an opportunity for miscommunication, which is, nobody's fault. It's just that we speak a little bit differently. And so to making sure that everybody's on the same page of what the assignment is absolutely a no-brainer. It's really a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to expand on that one more, just to tell a little story. I had a boss years ago who, I was in a director level position, and he was the CEO, and he would call me. He did this frequently. He'd call me from wherever. He's out on his cell phone, and I could barely hear him or understand the whole conversation to begin with. But he'd just give me all these instructions verbally, and I'd be like, shit, I think I understood about 2/3 of that, 3/4 of it, maybe. So I got in the habit of, as soon as I got off the phone, I would send him an email that says, okay, per the conversation we had, this is what I understand you want, blah, 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 blah. And he actually loved that. And because we had a couple of, we had a couple of, real come to Jesus meetings for some stuff I missed. And so I said, all right, I'm not missing anything anymore. So it's
sort of like that come to Jesus meeting you and I had last week.
Yeah, exactly.
We talk about Filipinos or Japanese or Indians or whatever, but the truth of the matter is I used to work for a British company, and it was the same thing over there. That's why they say that, America and Great Britain are like two countries separated by a common language. So, I learned that, when you bring an idea to your boss and your boss says, that's a really interesting idea, do some more work on that and let's revisit it. What that really means is that is the stupidest idea I have ever heard in my entire life. And if you ever bring that idea back to me again, I will fire you on the spot. Yeah. So anyway, but we're kind of lucky because we have a really terrific VA and who's been working with us for, gosh, I think almost a year, maybe a little over a year now.
Yeah.
And we, at a task level, she's great. I mean, all the stuff that she does it very, very well. And recently, though, we had a bit of a challenge because there was a larger project. This was like, delivering a capability with moving parts, and there was some automation that had to be developed and emails and, all this kind of stuff that had to be done. And we talked about it and said, look, is this the kind of project you'd be interested in? And she said, yes. And so we thought, all right, this is going to be great. And so we talked about it. And, I thought I was being clear as to what was going to be required. And it just wasn't happening. It wasn't happening, and we weren't getting a ton of feedback either. And I think the not getting a lot of feedback was a cultural issue. Um, and now I could have at that point, and I was getting kind of frustrated because we really wanted to deliver this capability. I could have at that point said, you know what, we need to go find somebody who can do this. And I thought that's sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So, I thought, what are the reasons why this wasn't getting done? So the first one is that, she didn't care, or she just didn't have a sense of urgency. Well, I didn't believe that. I mean, we've worked with her for over a year. She's just, she's got a great attitude. Second thing was, maybe there was something going on in her personal life that was making it impossible for her to deliver. And if that was the case, that would have been fine, so long as she'd let us know. But we didn't hear that per se. So I don't think that's what it was. So then it came to the third possibility, which I think was the most likely reason, which is that I was basically asking her to do something she had never done before. And while she wanted to do it, and she wanted to be able to deliver something like that, she didn't even know where to start. And it was a bit scary for her, and for cultural reasons, and didn't necessarily want to come back and say, I don't know how to do this. So that seemed like the most likely answer. And so what I did, and this was just my approach, but I think there's something instructive in it, is we set up a call, and I didn't ask her about the project. I just asked her about what were her career ambitions. Where did she want to go? It was more like a career coaching session, and she gave me exactly the response I expected to get, which was, I want to do a good job. I'm like, yes, I know that. So it took me back in time when I first started in my first commercial career after the military. I was working at Lucent Technologies, and I was running a team. We were building a new product, and my development manager, even though I was running the team, he was older and wiser than I was. He was an Indian guy at Bell Labs. And one day he came to me and he said, Howard, what do you want to get out of this project? And I said, oh, well, I think, this project is going to do great. It's going to change the way people communicate and blah, 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 blah. He's like, yeah. No. What do you want to get out of this project? And I said, well, if this project is really successful, the company will make a lot of money and blah, blah, blah. He says, yeah. I don't care about that. What are you going to get out of this? What do you want to get out of this? And he kept pushing me. And what he was really saying is, what do you personally want to get out of this in terms of reputation, knowledge, career advancement? What are you personally going to get out of being successful at this project? Because that's where the true motivation lies. And so I thought, okay, I got to take that and figure out how to use it in this situation. Maybe I can be a little bit more subtle than he was. But we went through that process, and I said, what's your ambition? What do you want to accomplish in your work? And she said, I want to do a good job for my customers. And so I just started taking it through what I call the 5 layers of why. I'm like, why? And she said, so that they'll be successful. And I said, why do you want them to be successful? And I just kept going down that path until finally there was no place left to go but just talk about what it was going to mean for her, and how she was going to grow. And I said, different people want different things, right? So my question is, do you really like and enjoy the more task-oriented work and just want to stay there and be happy doing that and getting paid? Is that your objective? Or do you have a longer term objective that would take you to higher levels of responsibility and higher levels or complication of work and probably higher paycheck to go with it? And she said, no, that's what I want. I said, you sure? Don't say this because you think it's what I want to hear. You got to say it because it's the truth. And she said, no, that's really what I want. And I said, all right, well, this project takes you on the road to do that. But we've been going a long time and we're not seeing a whole lot of delivery. So if that's what your ambition is, and this project is a vehicle to get you there, help me understand where the hang up is and why things are not moving along. And, it was all of the things that we've already talked about. It's like, well, I don't know, I didn't know how to do this and I didn't know how to do that. And I said, okay. I said, that's fine. And at that point I said, let's talk for a moment about the difference between American culture and Filipino culture. Because I understand, that, all the stuff I said earlier on this podcast, you guys are the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And I know that you want to do a great job, and I know that you don't want to necessarily let on if you don't know how to do something, but, and I don't know what it's like to work for a boss over there, and I don't know what their expectations are or how they respond if somebody doesn't know how to do something. But I can tell you, in American culture, you don't have to know anything. If you don't know something, you either have to figure it out or you have to ask. And, you don't get dinged any points by doing that. What that to me shows that you've got follow through and that you're going to figure it out no matter what. You're going to move obstacles to get the job done. So, either you have to figure it out or you have to come and ask, and then we'll figure it out together. But what you can't do is you can't just let it sit there and not do anything. That's just not going to work. And she understood that. And so then we went on and we were talking about one aspect, which is a little bit of more technical part of the project. And she said, I don't know how to do that. And I said, all right, well, when there are other things in your life outside of work that you don't know how to do and you want to know how to do them, it's 2023. How do you do it? And she just sort of, she's like, Google. I'm like, yeah, you look it up on the internet, or you find a video on YouTube, or in our case, if we're working with a particular technology, you go to their knowledge base, or you call somebody in the company and ask them how to do it. It reminds me of that old TV show, The X-Files. The truth is out there. You just have to seek it out and you have to find it. I said, so when you want to get to that higher level, you don't get rewarded for doing work. You get rewarded for providing a result.
Exactly.
And if you don't know how to do something, you get rewarded for going and figuring it out. That's the aggressiveness that will get you to achieve your dream of what you just said is your goal in your career. And so what could have been a difficult situation ended up being more of a coaching session. And I think for her, at least in the response she gave me, it was a very empowering session, because now she realized, she could go do these things and she could figure it out. And she told, and then right off the bat, she told me some specific issues where she was having a real problem. And then we went online together, we Zoomed and shared screen, and I showed her how to do it. And then she's like, oh, I get it now. And since then, I've been getting updates and she's been moving forward with the project, and it's been like a whole new relationship. And I think the key point there is that while I could have thrown the baby out with the bathwater, that would have been such a huge, huge mistake. And it would have been a huge mistake for three reasons. One is that it certainly at a task level, she had already proven herself to be very capable and do some really good work. And putting some artistic things in there, she was able to do things I wasn't able to do. The second reason, and this is a really big one, is that she'd been with us for about a year. And by now she actually knows our business. And she's able to do things more independently. Whereas if I brought somebody new in, we would have to train them from the ground up, and it would be much harder.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another good point for people where, if you've got a VA who has certain skills and maybe can be developed into other skills to a certain level, that's part of what you have to understand. So if you've got a technical project, project that's real challenging like this one, you might have to hire an additional VA. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but understand that, man, this person's great at these X amount of important tasks that I need done. Just realize, I've given this person a little bit too much of a challenge that may not be their swim lane, and maybe you got to find somebody else, on a project basis, or, for a few hours a week to take care of that additional project that you have. But yeah, such a key point there.
And I just want to make sure I get this in, that the third reason we wouldn't have wanted to let her go is because we really like her. So for those three reasons, much better to try to figure out where the disconnect was and fix it rather than just to do that in. When I was working for that London-based company, they didn't use the term HR or human resources. And when I first heard the term that they used, I'm like, oh God, it's going to be one of those touchy-feely kind of organizations. Because, as Americans, we are very practical, rubber meets the road kind of thing. It's like, give it to me straight. Let's not waste a lot of time with all the niceties. Let's get her done.
Well, except for this new woke culture.
Yeah, except for that. So we use the term human resources, and over in London, they use the term people and culture. I'm like, people, and can't we just call it human resources? But as time went on, I worked there for 5 years. I realized that their term is so much better than ours, because that's what it's all about. It's about people and building a culture that makes people want to feel like they belong and they're part of the team and they want to work hard, and developing them. HR, human resources. When you treat a person like a resource instead of a person, that's what you get in return. And that's why in this situation that I just described, I think it was so much more important to treat her as a person and to talk about the culture and certainly the culture we want to build at Land.MBA, to make her feel like she's part of the team and it's a safe environment for her to make a mistake. There's another term I just want to throw it out there. It's something I that was used a lot in the Marine Corps, which was called a zero defect mentality, and how we have to get rid of the zero defect mentality. Because if you are afraid to make a mistake because you think you're going to get penalized, then people stop taking initiative. And so culturally, I wanted to make sure that, with her and within the culture of our team, that we do not have a zero defect mentality. Make mistakes so long as you're making them because you're taking initiative and you're working hard towards achieve the goal. We can fix a mistake, but we can't fix an absence of effort.
Yep. And that's a great saying. I wish I could have convinced that, people, when I was back in sales and selling technology, I wish I could have convinced a lot of customers of that, because you get into, I'm going on a rabbit trail here, but you get into situations where there are different decision makers involved and you can't please all of them. And some of them are just, they're never going to take a risk because nobody ever got fired for buying IBM.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. More people get fired for making a decision than for not making a decision.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope this was helpful, just hearing a couple stories and giving you a couple of ideas on how you can create a closer bond in a more productive relationship, because VAs are critical and they do create a tremendous amount of leverage and they add so much value to the business. And if you build the right relationship, it can be a real benefit, both personally and professionally, to all of you. So thank you all for your time. And if you would be so inclined, we would love for you to hit the bell, hit the subscribe button, wherever you're hearing us, leave a note, leave a comment. It really does help us. And we really would appreciate you doing that. Dave, I think that's it.
All right. Sounds good, my brother. Have a good week.
All right, we'll see you guys next time on the Land.MBA podcast.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, had a bit of fun, and walked away with some actionable insights that you can apply to your business. Dave and I have got some great content and interviews planned, so don't forget to rate and review, and of course subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. If we mention any interesting links or tools, you'll find them in the show notes. To learn more about Land.MBA, visit our website at, wait for it, Land.MBA. See you next time on the Land.MBA podcast.